All right. One other thing just before, and Paul mentioned this, we should have, and maybe you did this, mention this in your groups, but the Roe v. Wade is up in the Supreme Court right now being argued. And so that's a big, big deal. It'd be great if that was overturned, put into the state's hands if they want to do anything. All right, we're going to dismiss those. Are you going over to the band room? Okay, those who are involved in the choir can be dismissed at this time. Everybody else can move closer. If you'd like. If you're comfortable, you don't have to. But we're going to turn in our Bibles tonight to Mark chapter 5. Mark 5. And we're going to look at, as it says here, the ruler of the synagogue and the ruler of life. If you know this account, you know why the title is that. But let's look at verse 21 of Mark 5. And when Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side, this is after healing the man possessed with the demon, much people gathered unto him. This is contrary to what happened there. Remember, they shooed Jesus away. They didn't want Jesus because he harmed their economic well-being. But here, when he shows back up in the region, the northern, or at least probably the northwestern part of the Sea of Galilee on the shore, he was welcomed. Much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. We'll stop there. So we have here this picture of what's going on. Jesus arrives. A whole bunch of people hear about his arrival, and they gather. They've heard of Jesus and his, they've seen it probably. They've heard of it, his healing power. And so here comes Jairus, making his way to Jesus, bows at his feet, and says, if you'll come and touch my daughter, she will be healed. There's a lot of faith in this man. And he expresses that to Jesus. And then it transitions, and we looked at this a couple weeks ago, it transitions into the woman with the issue of blood. And so as Jesus is going to heal Jairus' daughter, you have this that's happening while he's going. You have this lady touch his garment, and he says that virtue or power has gone out of him, and he healed this woman, and he who touched me? And of course, the disciples question him, how can you say who touched me? There are all these people thronging you. But Jesus felt that power go forth. And then he questioned the lady, and she feared. But he said unto her in verse 34, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. So all that happens while he's on the way to heal Jairus' daughter. Now we get back into the account, verse 35. While he yet spake, so in the middle of his speaking, there came from the ruler of the synagogue's house certain which said, Thy daughter is dead. Why troublest thou the master any further? As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. Or literally there, the be not afraid is stop being afraid. So the man was afraid, and Jesus says, Stop being afraid. Only believe. So keep the belief that you had when you first came to me. And he suffered no man, or didn't allow any man to follow him, save or except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And I thought it was interesting. He said the brother of James. If you read John and James, you usually assume that that's the sons of thunder, right? The brothers. Why might, I'm just throwing this out, why might he have said the brother of James here? I don't know that the others say that. I didn't look at that closely in my study. Okay. Okay, maybe because he's the younger. Why else? I have obviously a certain thought about it. I'll give you a huge hint in a minute. I just want to see if any of you know. Who's the author of this book? Yeah, what's his full name? John Mark. I think he says that because he's John as well. And so he's the author writing, and they might see James and John, and they might say, "Oh, that's you." He says, "No, the brother of James." Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know why else he might say that, because I think in most cases when you read about them, we would put together, we would assume Peter, James, and John, and not have to say, "I think that's the brother of James." And verse 38, "And he cometh to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and seeth the tumult, and them that wept and wailed greatly. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado, and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn." In other words, they ridiculed him. They made fun of him. But when he had put them all out, he taketh the father and the mother of the damsel, and them that were with him, Peter, James, and John, and entereth in where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, Talitha cumi, which is being interpreted, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And straightway the damsel arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. They were ecstatic. And he charged them straitly that no man should know it, and commanded that something should be given her to eat. All right, so the ruler of the synagogue and the ruler of life. So a couple things we want to look at. I have some questions, maybe a little different approach here tonight. We'll see if it works out. But the context here, we always have to remember the context. Okay, who's the author? Mark. Who is the audience? Okay, Romans are the audience. Okay, I think we find, how would they view a term like ruler? Okay, because I think that's important. I know that the others refer to one of the others. I can't remember which one says a ruler. Doesn't say the ruler of the synagogue. One of them says ruler of the synagogue, just like he does. But how would a Roman interpret something like a ruler? How would they view a ruler? Okay, good. A person who has authority, he's in charge. All right, so now with that in mind, a ruler comes to somebody else, right? This guy's usually in charge, but now he's coming to somebody else who is in charge of something else. Hence the title that I gave here tonight, the ruler of the synagogue and the ruler of life. So he recognizes he might have authority in a synagogue, but Jesus has authority over something much greater than he has authority, right? And I think that's what we see right here. Okay, let's talk about the ruler of the synagogue. Okay, what is the synagogue? The synagogue was the place in a town where the Jewish people met, mainly to learn. So they would open up the scrolls and they would teach there and gather. They would have social events. It was typically the tallest building in a town. And synagogues actually started in Babylon when they were in captivity. The people didn't have a temple, and so what they did is they created these synagogues, which is a term for gathering. It's similar to what church is. Church is an assembly. A synagogue is a gathering of people. And so in order to have a synagogue in a town, they needed 10 men. 10 men to have prayer and to lead that. And so in places like Jerusalem, there would be many synagogues where people of a certain community would come together and they would meet. And actually, as I was studying the synagogue out, even today, there are different, just like there are different kinds of churches. So you might, people from, that are, for instance, Muslim, they might look at a church and say that we're all the same. You just assume that everybody believes the same. And we would say, absolutely not. We're nothing like this church or that church or that church. We're not even the same as this Baptist church or that Baptist church, right? There are differences all throughout, and the same is true in synagogues as well, as I've studied on that. But social events, what kind of social events may they have hosted in a synagogue? Any idea? Wedding, yes. They would host a wedding in a synagogue, okay. Yeah, what else? What is a Jewish celebration? Okay, yes, the bar mitzvah. Right, you'd have something like that. And so they would, and it was the responsibility of the ruler of the synagogue to organize and to orchestrate these kind of events, to set up a schedule. Mostly the synagogue was a place of learning where they would teach children. They would gather in the synagogue for, like what we have, a church service, a synagogue kind of a service, and they would open it up. It was probably a lot like what we're doing. They would open it up and people would just speak. They would, some man would just get up and he would speak. And the ruler of the synagogue was not what? Well, the ruler of the synagogue, maybe contrary to what you might think, was not what? He was not a priest. He was a lay person. And so he was elected by others there to be the ruler, kind of a board system, and he was set up as a ruler. And so that's what this man was. He was the ruler of this synagogue. He kind of had the authority to make decisions about what was when and how it was done and so forth. In the synagogue, they had what they call an ark. At the ark, or in the ark, is where they kept the scrolls, and they would open the scrolls and read from the scrolls. If they had a priest who was visiting or who was there, they would often let the priest speak like a closing prayer or read from the word. Jesus and the disciples were actually welcome in the synagogues. We know that Jesus was. He spoke many times in the synagogue. And the disciples, after Jesus was resurrected and after he went to heaven, were actually in the synagogue as well, speaking. I think there was great interest in what had been taking place, and they could explain what they saw in the Old Testament and how it came to pass with Jesus and how he was Messiah. The ruler was a man who was elected, and he was tasked with organizing the teaching times, celebrations like bar mitzvahs, weddings, and raising of funds. So they'd have fundraisers. You have to pay for things. You have to pay for the upkeep of this synagogue. You have to, there are certain different events that you might have, and that costs money. And so to this day, they have the fundraising in the synagogue. Okay, so the raising of Jairus' daughter. All right. Now let's look at this. What evidence did Jairus have of the power of Jesus, which probably motivated him to seek out Jesus? What kind of evidence? I put down a couple of passages there, but what are some of the evidence that he had? I mean, why might he seek out Jesus? Well, let's go back to Mark 1. Yeah, I think it's important for us to look. I don't know that this is the synagogue. It could be. In Mark 1, verse 21, it says, "And they went into Capernaum, and straightway on the Sabbath day he entered into the synagogue and taught." That's Jesus. "And they were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one that had authority and not as the scribes. And there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, saying, 'Let us alone. What have we to do with thee, thou Jesus of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? I know thee who thou art, the Holy One of God.' And Jesus rebuked him, saying, 'Hold thy peace, and come out of him.' And when the unclean spirit had torn him and cried with a loud voice, he came out of him, and they were all amazed, insomuch they questioned among themselves, saying, 'What thing is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority commandeth he even the unclean spirits, and they do obey him.'" All right, let's go to chapter 3, verse 1. "And he entered again into the synagogue And there was a man there which had a withered hand. And they watched him, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath day, that they might accuse him. And he saith unto the man which had the withered hand, Stand forth. And he saith unto them, Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath days, or to do evil, to save life, or to kill? But they held their peace. And when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he saith unto the man, Stretch forth thine hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored whole as the other. Okay, these are just a couple of instances. These are things that happened in the synagogue. Okay, there are different synagogues, remember. We don't know the exact location of where Jesus is now. We know that he was in Capernaum in chapter 1. We don't have the exact location. Here in chapter 3, could have been the same one. And in chapter 5, it could have been the same one. And so Jairus could have been involved in each of these, or in the first two. And that could be some evidence that drew him to the Lord. But remember, Jesus was healing people like crazy. In chapter 1, 2, you see it all throughout. He is healing people. People are thronging him. At one point we read that Jesus was by the sea and he told the disciples to bring a boat because of the press of the crowd. He was afraid that they might get so close to him that he might be in trouble. And so that if he needed to quickly escape, he could. And so there are so many people that needed his help. So I believe that Jairus saw and heard of what Jesus did. And so he believed that Jesus could heal his daughter. Okay, so the evidence. What were the words of faith expressed by Jairus? Okay, what were these words of faith? Look at verse 23 of chapter 5. And besought him, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee, come and lay thy hands on her, that she might be healed, and she shall live. Okay, do you hear the faith in that man? And then the question is, did you pray that way tonight? I mean, when you gathered and you prayed for different things, is that how you prayed? Lord, if you will touch this individual, they will be healed. And this man spoke to Jesus and spoke with confidence. When I read that, I thought, wow, that's, do I pray that way? Did I pray that way this morning? Did I pray that way throughout the day? Believing that if I am talking directly to Jesus. Jesus, if you choose, if you say the word, if you touch that person, if you get involved in this, it's going to be fixed. I think we can learn a lot from what this man asked of Jesus. How might Jairus have felt about Jesus stopping to speak with the woman? Okay, so verse 25, how might Jairus have felt? They're on their way to, and he says, my daughter is sick unto death, well nigh to death. Okay, how might you feel if all of a sudden the guy that my daughter's going to die. I need you to come and heal her. Well, to me and to you, death means that's it, right? The end. So you got to hurry. So how might he have felt when Jesus turned and stopped the whole crowd and turned and spoke to this woman? I assume it wasn't just a 5-second conversation either. Okay, yeah, probably anxious, right? Frustrated, yeah. How would you feel? Okay, yeah, I like the way you put that. Yeah, I would be annoyed. And did you hear what I said to you? She's going to die. Yeah. Any other comments? I like these. Okay, yeah. If he just had the confidence in the Lord, he may have just had a peace like, oh, well, the Lord needs to help somebody else right now that's having an issue. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I think that would be a very, good and mature response from somebody who's a ruler of the synagogue, so that could be. We don't have any indication here. A 2-for-1 deal. BOGO, huh? All right. Yeah, I think, so let's look at this. If you had been Jairus, standing and waiting for Jesus to come and see about your daughter, how would witnessing this woman's healing have affected you? Okay, that's a long question. It's like those questions my daughters get, and they always come to me and say, Dad, this history question. I said, well, you need to ask Mr. Merrill. I said, well, we have to kind of break these things down. Okay, so if you're Jairus and you see Jesus heal this woman, how might that affect you? This is different from the previous question. Do you see the difference? Maybe you don't. Great. I think, yeah, reassuring. Definitely. He just did a miracle, or at least that's the indication, right? That this woman was there and she's been healed. Or so she says, and he says. All right, good. Yeah, I think that that could be a reassuring thing. Any other thoughts? How that might be viewed? Okay.
Faith is demonstrated according to the Old Testament. Peace and calm shall be your strength.
Okay, good. Yeah, here's a moment of teaching even from Jesus to this man in strengthening his faith, right? I think, yeah, his faith definitely could have been strengthened. The reassurance, the strengthening of faith, all taking place there. Yeah, good. Okay, what is the providential significance of Jesus healing the woman with the issue of blood and is raising Jairus' daughter from the dead? Okay, another really long question. But there is providential significance here. And what is it? Okay, any thoughts? I think these questions all kind of melt together a little bit. But I think we need to look at it that way. All right, good. Yeah. Yes, Kathy. No, you first. Ladies first. Okay, yeah. Yep, her believing. Yep, her confidence.
I think Mark is trying to show the power of Jesus Christ because in this one chapter, you have him dealing with the demons and disease and death. I know it sounds like a sermon.
Yeah, it does.
But it's a very concise, significant, powerful portrait of his power.
Yes.
I don't know the chronology of this compared to the other Gospels, whether all these things really did happen in sequence.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, they do, as I was studying that, they believe that Mark is the most sequential. Yep.
It's the sequence that it was. Yeah, and he was probably the first of the Gospels,
Mm-hmm.
did that. But yeah, I think he's trying to convey this is the power of who this is, which again would greatly speak to the Roman crowd. They highly value power.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Respected power.
Yep. And that's why I think a word like,
Saw themselves as the most powerful thing on the earth.
that's right.
Empire. Here's
Yeah.
Jesus.
And yeah, Jesus is doing things that even Caesar, this God of theirs can't do. And so so all of these events are pointing to them and pointing out to them that he's real, right? The providential significance here is, I find it fascinating that here you have this man come. Jesus comes to the shore, and all these people gather. He's back. Jesus is here. So they rush to him, and you have this man that rushes to Jesus, and he bows before him, and my daughter is sick unto death. Will you come and heal? If you just touch her, she'll live. And so I don't know if it's from here to the distance to the synagogue, but this other lady, and she could have been in that crowd as well, just trying to get enough courage up, just to get up there and just touch him. And you kind of get that indication that she's got to build her courage up, and then she gets enough courage, and she finally does it, and she feels healed, and then she sees Jesus turn around, and all this is happening all at the same time. He's going to heal, and he stops in the middle of it and heals, and then he continues on going, and then you have death, right? She's dead. And Jesus says, no, she's only sleeping. Okay, so when Jesus says she's only sleeping, what does he know that they don't know? Is she really sleeping? Well, it seems like she has no pulse, right? They would have known what to check for. What was Jesus saying? He's going to wake her up, right? He's going to reconnect her. There's the separation there. And Jesus has the power to, wake her up, to bring her back. And, death is separation, right? That's what it is. Whenever the Bible talks about death, it's talking about a separation. When we talk about death, we're talking about separation. When we have a funeral and we have a casket and the body is in the casket, the soul is not there. It's been separated from the body. And so Jesus has the ability to reunite the two, and that speaks to his deity and his power that Robert brought out. Yes?
I don't know if you'll mention this as well, but another interesting thought is both these people that Jesus healed in this chapter are women. And of course we know about there's going to be a gender gap issue during the Roman times, but by showing, hey, Jesus is willing to help anyone, man or woman or little girl, and I think that's a big important lesson to show people who are reading this. Hey, Jesus cares about everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in the Roman economy and the world economy at that time. And that's if you study out these countries where the gospel goes in, you have many of these places, Muslim nations especially, that their women have the Taliban came in back into Iran, and what happened? The women all had to cover up. They couldn't drive anymore, and they went back to the old strict adherence to their laws. But where Christianity goes, there's freedom. And there is that freedom and the ability, kind of what you bring out, and that's what Jesus does, because Jesus ministers to all. But yeah. Okay. What kind of faith did it take for Jairus to keep believing Jesus could make a difference even after he heard that his daughter was dead? Okay, what kind of faith did that have to take? Even after he hears she's dead, how would you feel? Okay, let's just put it into that. Okay, I'm going to somebody to help, and in my mind, okay, as long as they're still alive, he can help. Death means it's over, right? Because he even makes the point, she's almost dead. Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, maybe there's hope. At least I have Jesus. Yeah, you'd feel a lot better, right? And I do think when you look at what's just happened, right? The woman with the issue of blood has been to all these different doctors. She's tried all sorts of treatments. She's broke. I mean, she spent all of her money and got no help. And as a Roman, you're reading this, Jesus heals her, okay? That problem solved. Now, death. Okay, wow, he helped that lady, something that nobody else could help. Could Jesus help her? Imagine reading this the first time. She's dead. She's dead? It's over. No, it's not. You continue reading on, and there's more. I do think for him to keep believing, that would have made it harder, to hear that. I mean, just naturally, to me, it would have made it harder to hear that. But having Jesus there, I think, it definitely helps. As Jesus traveled through crowds of needy people, how do you think he decided whom to respond to? Okay. I think there's, definitely something there, right? The woman, her heart, I think a lot maybe had to do with the way they viewed him. Remember the woman, if I just touch him, I'll be healed. This man, my daughter's almost dead. I've come to you for healing. I mean, there is this confidence in this faith. Kathy kind of brought it out there. This faith in Jesus. And that you, Jesus, can fix, heal, take care of, whatever it is. I think there was some of that element. However, in the synagogue, you have somebody with an unclean spirit. Why might Jesus have done that in the synagogue? Probably to be a lesson to these other believing people, looking and hoping and longing for the Messiah. Jesus casts out a demon. That's interesting. This guy's been teaching us. He teaches with authority. Now he's cast out a demon. This guy is different, for sure. To the Romans, wow. They probably saw demon-possessed people themselves and probably feared them as well. So let's see the effect on the original audience. How do you think the mourners felt after the miracle? Those who ridiculed Jesus for saying the girl was not dead. How do you think they felt after the miracle? And the language here indicates that they were making fun of Jesus for saying, oh, she's not dead, she's asleep. Okay? Yeah, I mean, here you have a contradiction, right? You have a man who has all sorts of faith, believing in Jesus. A woman who has all sorts of faith, believing in Jesus. And here you have these mourners, they're hired, and Jesus says, don't worry about it. Stop making all the noise. She's not dead, she's just asleep. And they, yeah, right, that's a joke. You're a joke. And see, you see a lack of faith. You see the faith and lack of faith. And so you have the two different individuals, if you will, here. The different ways of viewing Jesus laid out for a sinner who's reading this. Am I like this person believing, or am I like this person ridiculing? And that's where the world is. Do I believe or not? And I think, after they saw, maybe they became believers. Maybe they were embarrassed. Who knows? How might this account affect a Roman reader in the first century? First time reading this? Remember, they believed that Caesar was God. They believed in all sorts of gods. How might reading this affect a Roman? Okay, yeah, they might compare power, right? From Rome to Jesus. This is supernatural. Theirs was kind of manufactured. You get enough soldiers and power behind you, anybody will do what you can make them do. But this is one man doing great works. Okay, yeah. I think this is a seed planting here, right? They're thinking, wow, this is interesting, what I'm reading about. If this is true, there's something to this Jesus. I should keep reading because I want to find out what else he does. And they come to the end and he dies. But then he comes back to life. Surely as the Roman centurion said, this must be the Son of God. And we'll get to that as we get closer. One final question, very practical. What is the significance of her needing to eat? What's that? Okay, she's been sick for a while. Yeah. Brooke was sick on Monday and Tuesday. Monday. Woke up Tuesday feeling better, slept in. Week, Tuesday, needed to eat, wanted to eat. Looked kind of skinny, ate, drank, looks better. Okay? That's what would have happened here, right? I mean, just very practically, she would have been gaunt. She was almost dead, probably been sick for some time, and would have needed some sustenance. But I think, what else does it say? Yeah.
I think it's a sign that she's fully recovered.
Yeah. Fully healed, right? Because, yeah, when Brooke was fully better, she wanted to eat. And it just shows that, and maybe it was that she had been vomiting and having all sorts of other problems as well. And yeah, and I think exactly. I think Robert hit it right on the head. It was a sign that she was fully well, and Jesus had healed her. All right, good. Any other comments here tonight as we close up? I love this study. I love going through the Gospels and seeing Jesus at work. And always when you read these gospel accounts, whatever gospel you're reading from, remember who the audience is, because it's important that we do that, because it was written to a specific people for a specific reason. And the applications make more sense when you look at it applied to them and how it would then apply to you even today, because it will apply even much more clearly for you. All right, let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for Jesus and these, just the instructive nature of these passages, of how while he was going, he was healing and ministering and then and having a greater purpose behind all that he was doing, pointing to his power over death and his power over hell, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Lord, I pray that you will strengthen our faith, that we will pray like this man prayed, believing, Lord, if you will, she will live. Help us to pray that same way, with that confidence in you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Have a good night.